Dominicans at home and abroad on our agriculture, our economy, our foreign relations, our justice system, our governance, our international competitiveness, our education, our world class festivals and entertainment, sports, politics, regional cooperation, and much more. Globally positioning Dominica within the Caribbean. Join the conversation on the Global View on Q. Tune in, call us, have your say. The Global View on Q, only on Q95, the big station.
Good evening to you at home or in your vehicle, or if you are on the road or at work or listening on the radio or on the internet in Dominica or abroad. Thank you for choosing Q95. This is the Global View on Q. A very warm welcome to all of our Q family listeners at home and globally. I'm Sheridan Gregoire, Mr. G. It is Tuesday, the 20th day of February 2026, the 8th Tuesday of 2026, and it's 8 p.m. in the studios at Q95, the big station. We're live on our radio frequencies on QTV. Please follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Q95 FM Radio. Share the live, like our pages, or on your phone numbers are on the homepage of our website at www.q95da.com. Get the latest breaking news and reviews on Q95 because you know it's true if you hear it on Q. We continue to revive the spirit of graciousness, love, peace, prosperity, and unity among our Kalinago Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters. It is our fifth Global View on Q show for 2026, and we continue to engage with our local, regional, and global Q family listeners and friends of Dominica at home and abroad. With me tonight is hopefully will join us soon, co-host Justice Dr. Irving Andre, former CSA General Secretary Alvin Thomas, and Professor Alex Bruno. Our discussion tonight is in four parts. One, we will examine the low voter turnout that resulted in Labour Party regimes in Barbados and Dominica. Two, we will look at the deliverables from DLP regimes in Dominica yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Three, we will explore the relationship between Dominica's production, progress, and patriotism. And four, we will answer the question, does the key to Dominica's future lie in its human resources in the diaspora? So here's some issues, some questions, if you like, some talking points. Does low voter turnout in elections in Barbados and Dominica suggest that Bajans and Dominicans gave up their right to vote and couldn't be bothered? Or were there a lot of people whose names were not on the voters list? Is that 30.8% voter turnout in Barbados the result of an incomplete voters list, or have the citizens lost trust in the system? Why didn't 70% of the citizens recognize the importance of participating in their democracy? What is driving this phenomenon of low voter turnout in the region? Could that be one of the results of calling slap elections? How can this be reversed? Is politics now left to rogues and vagabonds as the people are no longer involved and have lost their trust in the system? What is the role of production, patriotism, and the prodigal son? Does the key to Dominica's future lie in the human resources abroad in the diaspora? What is being done to tap this resource and to tap Dominica's creative energy? How can we unleash Dominica's potential? Does the development of Dominica have to mean opening the arms of the country to the highest foreign bidder? And if the US, for example, just saying so, if the US puts an embargo on Western Union and MoneyGram transferring funds to Dominica in retaliation for Dominica's cozy relationships with Venezuela, with China and Cuba, what will happen to the remittances from abroad of some $1 million a week that assist Dominicans in paying their daily living bills? So we look forward to the contributions of Justice Dr. Irving Andre, former CSA General Secretary Alvin Thomas, and Professor Alex Bruno, and callers and viewers on the radio, on Facebook, and on YouTube on low voter turnout that resulted in a proliferation of Labour Party regimes in Barbados and Dominica, deliverables from the DLP regime in Dominica yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the relationship between Dominica's production, progress, and patriotism, and thus the key to Dominica's future lie in its human resources abroad. So as usual, we invite you, our Q family and friends of Dominica, to help us give our usual huge shout out, a big thank you to our farmers, our healthcare providers, our frontline workers, police and fire officers, teachers, doctors, nurses, and public and private sector patriots and friends of Dominica at home and abroad. And as I always say, we welcome each and every Dominican and friend of Dominica to the Global View on Q. We embrace you wherever you are, in every nook and cranny, in every village, in every community at home in Dominica, in the region and globally. Thank you, Sherwin, for keeping us on the air, and thank you, Lambi, on the console directing the traffic. We will take your calls. As you know, the people's voice is always a priority on Q and on the Global View on Q. So call us anytime during the program. Lambi will signal us when you call. My co-host and guest panelists will expand and deliver on their own ideas on the topic. As usual, each panelist will divide the contribution into five-minute presentations, and will also have an opportunity to make a closing remark. I go now to former CSA General Secretary Alvin Thomas to give his opening 5-minute remarks. Alvin, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. G. Thank you very much. And let me say a pleasant good evening to you and your studio production folks like Lambi and the other guys at the back that makes this happen. And to say a very good evening as well to my good friend, Alex Bruno. Yeah, Alex is my really good buddy. Go back many, many moons. So it's a pleasure to be here, and a pleasant good evening as well to all the various and the number of persons who have already logged in and listening to the program. A pleasant good evening. And just to say thank you, Mr. G, for inviting me again to lend my voice to the conversation. That's my little humble voice. When I received your invitation and I saw the other guests on the program, I said, but wait a while now. Mr. G is inviting me to a classroom with all these eminent, illustrious persons. I may have to sit, as the Trinidadian woman said recently, at the back of the class and do my little presentation, or come to the front, do it, and then move to the back. But it's always a pleasure to be a part of the program and to have that kind of exchange with our folks in Dominica and as well as outside of Dominica. The first area or item that I guess we want to explore and to discuss in some respect has to do with the voter turnout, as you indicated in your opening comments, as it relates to Barbados' recent elections, as well as Dominica's own past elections. And let me maybe begin by just stating that when we talk of voters' turnout or the percentage of voters' turnout, it is not merely a statistical exercise or looking at numbers. I think it's an indicator that of the democratic health of that country. And we all need to always understand that democracy is not a spectator sport. If you don't participate, decisions will be made without your voice. So clearly, the question of voter turnout in any one of the islands in the region must be of concern to not just the politicians, but I guess to the wider society, wider civil society. And the question to be asked, well, why is that happening? And there can be a number of factors that drives that. And I'm sure my good friend Alex will speak even a little more eloquently to that. But among some of the matters that come to hand is you might want to say political fatigue, you might want to say disenchantment among young persons, you might want to say a lack of trust and confidence in the system, a number of issues. One particular issue that I will mention has to do with the electors list. If that sacred electors list appears to be compromised, appears to be not authentic, transparent, then people lose that confidence in the system. and we just say, it is what it is. It does make a difference. We can speak to that a little more in terms of those numbers, because when I did a quick research in the case of Barbados, for example, I noted that they had a Barbados. If you go back to their three-cycle elections, in 2018, they had a voter turnout of 60.3%. And in 2022, when they had the next general election, that went down to as low as 41.7%. And their most recent election in 2026, it went down even lower than that to 30.8%. So as you notice, the trend has been a downward trend from 2018, 2022, and 2026. And when you correlate that, for example, with Barbados' population, in 2018, for example, Barbados had a population of a little over 280,000 persons, 280,711. And they had on their voters list at the time in 2018, 258,901. So a little less than in our case, Dominica, in terms of the population vis-a-vis your electors list. But even then, if you look at that 2018 voter turnout of 60.3%, that represented just roughly 63,000. We lost Mr. G. We lost Mr. G. I think we lost him. I guess we can continue.
He's there.
He's there. Okay. That really works out to a little over 63,000 voters who voted. And like I said earlier, the voter turnout indicates the democratic health of a country, and it's not a spectator sport. Now, and also I will add here that I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to listen to Prime Minister Motley address at a swearing in this time around, and I think she recognized the seriousness of this matter, if I may put it this way. And she, in her closing comments, indicated that that is one area that she intends to look at and set up whatever mechanism or reform that is needed, because she's talking about a practice that is the electoral practice that's over 30 plus years that have not seen any reform of any form. And all of that could be factors that drive a voter's turnout. An unreformed and archaic system that is not, for want of a better word, user-friendly, that can drive the voters' turnout. Now, if I may just segue very quickly to Dominica's scenario, I would say, Mr. G and your listeners, that as way back as 19 years ago, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the address by the then president of the Commonwealth of Dominica, deceased His Excellency Dr. Nicholas Liverpool, in his address to the first meeting of the third session of the 7th Parliament, way back in July 18, 2007, referenced that particular matter as a matter of concern then. And if I may just quote briefly in that address that he gave to Parliament, he says there that, quote, "The downward trend in the pattern of voting is illustrated by the following official figures." And he went on to state that in 1951, at the first general election held under the principle of universal adult suffrage, was a 75% voter turnout. The statistic revealed that the general election held in 1980, there was an 80.21% of the registered voters cast their ballot. And at the 1985 general election, that went down to 74.56 of the eligible voters voted. The figure was reduced to 66.64 at the general election held in 1990, 65.18 in 1995, 60.17 in 2000, and 59.09 in May of 2005. This represents a 21% reduction in the percentage number of voters who have cast their ballot in the last 20 years, unquote. And that was His Excellency at the time raising those concerns. Now, if we just go in more recent times and we look at the 2019 elections in Dominica, you had a voter turnout of 54.56, I think it was, based on the research that I did. And in 2022, when you had, one might say, a sort of unique situation because the opposition parties did not participate. Of course, you had a few independent candidates who ran. We're looking at a turnout of 31.60%. So clearly, this is a matter that needs to be looked into, particularly if any of the political parties are seeking to attract the younger voters. Our younger voters say, no, boy, there's no trust, no confidence in the system, and therefore it doesn't make a difference. You ask him or her, why you're not voting, and they may conclude, well, it doesn't make a difference to me. So I know maybe at some point this evening we might be able to touch on the confirmation and the registration, because that too, in a way, impacts on the whole question of the voter turnout, low voter turnout. And I will just conclude by stating, though, that even in the preliminary report that was issued by the election, the CARICOM election observation mission that was in Barbados, they too had some concerns, in particularly as it relates to the electors list. And like I said, that in itself, if your list is not as credible as it should, and there are questions surrounding the list, that can have an impact as well on voters turnout. So I will just end here for now, and obviously we'll make some further comment as the conversation unfolds.
Yes, thanks a lot for these opening comments there. When I got logged out,
I realized that.
This internet is something else sometimes. Anyway, I got logged in. I'm back on now, so we're good to go. Alex, let me just come to you. I don't know whether you want to add to anything that Alvin has just said about the low voter turnout and what the phenomenon that is driving this low voter turnout in the region.
Well, Alvin was right on the money. And let me say, even before I continue, thank you to you, Mr. G, for inviting me to be on here tonight. It's a pleasure to work with Alvin. As Alvin said, we go way back. I mean, he said many moons, but I think it's many, many moons. Yeah, it's a brethren I have a lot of respect for, love and admiration. And so it's a pleasure to be on this program with him. So Alvin was on the money in terms of the statistics, and he quoted from a document that I'm very familiar with, Dr. Liverpool of 2007. I think I've almost crammed that document, and I've made reference to that document on several occasions. Dr. Nick was my personal friend, to the point where I was invited to his inauguration as president. I was invited to his house on many occasions. We hiked together. So he was my friend, and may he continue to rest in peace. A very honorable gentleman who left us very valuable information to munch on, and Alvin did very well to cite him tonight. That's why I really admire Alvin. So there's nothing I can add to that. And indeed, there has been a dwindling in terms of voter turnout. The only little deviation I'll make from Alvin is that he said participation or massive participation makes democracy healthy, which is true. But a democracy does not need full participation. It just needs a majority. And the people who are running our democracies in the Caribbean, they know that too very well. And with a bloated voting list in Barbados and Dominica, we expect that the true representation of the voters are not represented on the bloated list. Because you cannot tell me you have a list of 200,000 voters and you have 200 something thousand people. I mean, there's the disparity is just out of whack. Dominica also very similar. We almost have the same amount of people on the voting list as people on people as citizens who are living in Dominica, quote unquote. So we have some issues with that. In Dominica's case, we had something called reform. Well, we know how that went. I don't think this was a reform that was done in the interest of a democratic reform. It was done in the interest of the incumbent party, and nothing much is expected to be changed based on that reform. I think the real reform is people deciding to vote for a different group of individuals to lead Dominica. That we can discuss that sometime later on. So the diminishing trend of people voting in Dominica and Barbados and elsewhere shows disinterest on the part of many. The bloated list also factors in that as well, but that's not the biggest issue. Alvin was right that people don't feel as if they have a stake in what is taking place. And I can even quote from a document that I did some time ago, a research, a survey, a poll, because I believe in presenting data. I don't think one can present opinion about anything in the absence of data or facts. And Dr. Andre would tell you that as a lawyer, you don't give opinions based on how you feel. You give opinions based on precedents, on case law, on principles, on whatever the case is. So ideas are one thing, opinions are other. So whenever I give an opinion about something, it is rooted in facts and is generally based on what people are saying. And based on what Dominicans have said about the state of affairs of our politics, is that a number of them have generally given up. I mean, in the high 30% of people responding saying they have given up. And there is very little hope because they're not getting the sort of inspiring message to have them to hope. So those people will not show up to vote because they are like resigned to their own fate. They're settling for what it is that they can get, and what they don't get is if they survive. They put their frustration on FET and CWO, and that's how they live their lives, some of them. Now, you cannot blame people when they get to those states. But what we can do, and what I hope this program can help to do, is to rekindle the kind of pride and hope in self, the kind of a dignified pride and hope in ourselves and country. And I'm hoping that not just us, but others who are interested in enlightening the people and in serving the people can say, yes, here's the blueprint for taking this thing from where we are now to somewhere else. Let's not blame what has happened or who has been in or who's still in. Let me give you something that you can rely on, and let's go fix Dominica and Barbados, because the majority in terms of the incumbent victory in Dominica and Barbados does not reflect the real wish of Bajans and Dominicans. Mia Mottley is a fantastic leader, and she used this international flair to brand her political product as the Prime Minister of the Caribbean. Somehow the Bajans like that, because when she speaks for the region, she even speaks for Africa. So that will jive with the Bajan public, who domestically have issues with a lot of things that she's doing. The other thing in Barbados is that the opposition kind of lackluster too. In fact, Mia beats the opposition in terms of the change message. She should be changed, but she beat them saying that she is the change. So they were disorganized, they were not together, they didn't get it right. So people are not going to worry to turn up to vote. And again, she called a snap election. So the calculation, she's a very politically savvy individual. She understands what she's doing. She's in the business and she's making it work for her. So the snap election, the ability to crunch the numbers in all 30 areas, to get the majority in all those areas, and other things that I have said and Alvin have said, is the result of the overwhelming victory that Mia had. No discrediting to her, but that does not reflect the general mood of the Bajans, who I spoke with before this program to find out exactly what is taking place. In Dominica, is the same thing. Alvin spoke to it, that there was a wholesale boycott of the election. The major opposition parties stayed away. Certainly UWP, which is the most established and probably best organized party on island in terms of party, because the party in office now is not Labour. It is a power sharing arrangement. So the UWP is a big election, is a big political machinery. They stayed away from the election, and I think we had very low turnout based on that as well. And people just didn't have any reason to shout. And I continue to say that probably in hindsight it was a mistake not to do it, but I mean, we can debate that no one is right or wrong about it. We can debate that at some other time. So that is pretty much the situation in Barbados and Dominica. Those overwhelming victories by the incumbent parties does not reflect the mood of the overwhelming majority of those people.
All right, very well said, Alex. Alvin, let me come back to you now. You did mention a little earlier in your first opening remarks, you did mention about the reconfirmation process taking place now by the Electoral Commission. This seems to be, mired in all kinds of difficulty because we heard first of all, one or two outstanding citizens had to write to the commission to explain to them that they had stopped the registration. And the law says that registration must continue. As a matter of fact, the Prime Minister himself came on and in Parliament and he made the comment, but he was disturbed by the stop of the registration process. Let's talk about that reconfirmation process, Alvin, a little bit. And let's also try to tag that to the question of snap elections, because we can see how these things they correlate. And so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. G. But let me even before I get to that, let me just again go back because and just share some information as it relates to Barbados, and I'll come right back to the question that you asked. Because there was, for the first time in Barbados, 3 cycles election, you had observers in Barbados. 2018, there were no observers. 2022, there were no observers. I think it was said that Mia said, oh, nobody need to come and tell them how to run the election. So she wasn't in favor of any observers coming to observe the election. However, in 2026, she agreed, and Barbados, by the invitation of the Barbados government, you had CARICOM observers in Barbados observing the elections. So that too is a very, I won't want to use the word critical, but an observation that needs to be noted. Now, in their preliminary report that they issued, here's what they said in their report. And the reason why I'm referencing that, if you recall, back in 2022, it was when the CCJ issued their report on Dominica's 2019 general election 2022. If you go through that report, one of the things that they underline and they stress in several areas of the report, they said that the electors list is central to any general election. That thing you call the registers list or the electors list, that is sacrosanct. If that appears to be corrupt in any shape or form, the outcome of the election can be in question. So here's what the commission, the observers, said in Barbados. Regarding the voters list, the mission noted the concerns of stakeholders regarding the enumeration process, the omission of names from the list, confusion regarding the polling stations at which some electors were registered to vote, the inclusion of deceased voters on the list, and the removal of voters erroneously identified as deceased. However, the mission observed that the Electoral and Boundaries Commission made concerted effort to address these queries leading to the polls. They went on further to state, voter turnout maintained a steady pace throughout the day, but appears noticeably low. Regarding the configuration of polling station, it was observed that the positioning of voting booth was inconsistent. They went on further to say, the team observed that none of the polling stations had the list of electors posted to allow voters to verify their names. Members of the team received reports, however, of voters whose names were not included on the list at the polling station or reflected on the master's voters list. So these are some of the observations in the preliminary report that they made. So let's just go back now to the question that you raised as it relates to the confirmation and the registration to Dominica. It is my view, my humble view, that the manner in which this matter is being handled leaves a lot of doubt and questions in people's mind. And herein lies the question of the trust, the confidence, the transparency, if you want to use that, as it relates to the process and the way the process is being undertaken. This piece of legislation was passed back in March of 2025, 19th March 2025. And it took the commission November of 2025 to issue a press release to say that they are unable to register new voters. Now, mark you, as you rightly pointed out, and I can reference the section in the Act that says that registration must be shall be continuous. And we heard, those of us who were listening or got a copy of the Prime Minister's address to Parliament. He, as some people say, he threw them under the bus, the commission. He said what they did was unconstitutional and unlawful. Basically, he said that in his statement to the thing. So clearly, in a scenario like that, where it took them almost, 10, 11 months to recognize that new voters could not register to vote, it places some level of mistrust or how should I say it? It doesn't motivate these young people to wanting to go and register, if you understand what I'm saying. And then now come to the confirmation part of it. We know what are the high bars that has to be met. A passport, a driver's license, a social security card as the form of ID in order to be able to get your confirmation processed. Now, again, the Prime Minister raised that in Parliament. And he said he don't understand why the commission went ahead and passed the SRO that they passed, because the law anticipated that folks could have confirmed on the basis of their birth certificate and a justice for the peace signing off or whatever I'm trying to just paraphrase whatever he said, in other words. And therefore, you don't understand why the commission went ahead and made it so difficult to request a passport and that type of thing. There was a press release that was issued recently by the Bar Association. The Dominica Bar Association issued a press release. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it, but they too raised a number of issues in their release as it relates to that, the confirmation. I'm saying all of this to say, therefore, that there appears to be a lack of, there is a lack of trust in the system. People feel, well, this thing is not working right, or it's the commission is not really out there doing the kind of public education that they need to do to encourage people to come in and confirm and to register. The other thing I will say on that is I recall hearing the chief election officer saying that he was on Matt's program a while back, saying that as many as 10,000 persons have already come in to process their confirmation. But as you know, you come in with your information, you provide information, it goes to the commission. I guess at the back end, the commission has to validate all of that and determine whether or not. At the 15th of every month, based on the act, the commission is supposed to publish the list of persons' names who have now been added to that new confirmation list. So 15th from the time they started in October. So 15th of February, we should see what confirmations you got for January. 15th of March, you'll see what you got for February, until you go on to the various quarters in the legislation when the list is supposed to be published. I did a little research as well. And do you know that since that process started back in October, there is no letter, and based on the last published list or names that should be added in as confirmed persons, you only had less than 2,000 persons. I think the number is about 1,800 thereabout. So what that tells you clearly, there appears to be some administrative challenges, because if you're saying as many as 10,000 persons have already come in with their documents to be confirmed, and based on your published list, when the last published list is only showing less than 2,000 persons, there seems to be an administrative issue there. So the question remains now, if that is the trend at which we are processing and going, we're left what, another 6-8 months, because we have to go up until we're in February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, another 8 months before that 1 year ends for the confirmation purposes. And then you can extend it to another 3 months up to 15 months. We are operating now with a list. The posted list that is showing on the commission's website as we speak now, maybe they have updated it since I looked at it, is November 2016, showing 74,489 thereabout names on that list, somewhere in that region. So let's suppose now, as I said, we only have 2,000, and that list has to be purged by what? 20,000? Take it down to 51? I don't know. 14,000, take it down to 60? I don't know. I mean, herein again lies to the earlier conversation we just had as it relates to voters turnout. So I think the whole process, honestly, needs to be re-examined. How that is going to be done, I'm not sure. We heard the Prime Minister, and the final word I will say on that is that Antigua, and that is the sad part about it, you know. Other countries in the region have done electoral reforms before, so we're not the new kid on the block. That's the saddest part about this whole thing. Antigua did it. Antigua did a complete re-registration. So they threw away that old list and say, look, everybody come and re-register your name and we get a clean list. I think they were able to do that within a period of 3-6 months. They had everything done. Everybody got the ID, everybody got re-registered. In our case, we chose not to do a complete re-registration, we do a confirmation. And herein lies the problem. So how do we move forward on that? And what the result is going to look like is anyone's guess. But I think as we speak now, there seem to be some serious challenges that the commission. And then the final thing I will just say is that we paid Sir Byron $750,000, 700 and thereabout, to do the report. Sir Byron didn't only do a report. Sir Byron engaged a legal draftsperson towards the end of his exercise who drafted legislation intended to go to Parliament. And we know what happened to those. Those were thrown aside. You could go back and see the comments of Mr. Julian Johnson. He wrote extensively on that concern. One of the things that is a huge area, and that came up in Barbados too, with the observers, campaign financing. The absence of campaign financing, that came up. But the entire package of Sir Byron, in my view, from what I am knowledgeable of, was thrown aside, and a whole new stuff was done and submitted. So again, goes back to trust in the system. So I'll end here for now, and obviously have my good friend Alex to comment as in terms of how he sees it.
Yeah, I'm sure that Alex has a lot to say about this. But Alex, I want to just say this to you as you start. We know that the chief elections officer, the one that was removed, or he was allowed to leave.
Anthony, yeah.
Yes, he was very experienced and qualified. I mean, obviously.
Well, I don't think Mr. G is fair to say he was removed. I think based on the Constitution, he had reached that 60, whatever the Constitution says, to be removed. But having said that,
okay, fair enough.
Brought him in as a consultant.
Fair enough. The point is that he was allowed to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he would have been the best person because of his experience and his knowledge and his qualification to have
Absolutely.
undertaken this task. Now, Alex, are we left to believe that the government appointed a chief elections officer and they have 3 people on the election commission? I will have to believe, according to the prime minister, that he had no knowledge of the fact that these people were going to pass his SRNO. And he had there was no communication with him about the lack of the stop of the registration process and all of that. Are we supposed to believe that?
No, it is a bit difficult to even accept that something like that would happen without the knowledge of the Honorable Prime Minister, knowing how he runs things and how he operates in the country. So I'm not saying that he's not telling the truth, but it's just difficult to decipher how a commission could so unilaterally act in a way that defiles what the Honorable Prime Minister of Dominica would have wanted. That is a bit hard to digest, but I'm giving the Prime Minister the benefit of all doubt. And I'm accepting what he said, but it does not register. It does not go down. It does not sit well. I think it could be a case of damage control. This is not working. This is a problem. Somebody has to take the fall. Who's taking the fall? Let's take care of that. But that still does not fix the problem, because as Alvin said, the problem with reconfirmation is a big problem, especially the quote-unquote requirements that one needs to reconfirm. And Alvin was right that Antigua had a re-registration process. What was so difficult about re-registering? Let the Electoral Commission do their work, see who has died, get all the people death certificates, remove all the people who you know have died, and those people that you're not sure about, make sure that you know what's going on with them, and just re-register everybody on the list. That is the easiest proven way to conduct a list of.
And Alex, just give me 1 second. We all will recall that when this process started, the discussion and the consultation started, all of the opposition groups, civil society said, look, it's best we go for complete re-registration.
Yes.
And also insisted that there should be campaign finance reform.
Yeah, that is very, very true. And only one party in Dominica dissented to that suggestion. And that is the party that controls the incumbency in the government. That's why I continue to say that reform was not done for the democracy or for us. Reform was done for the party. Because if everyone is asking for re-registration, why is it that this is so difficult to give to everyone? That's what we want. So it was not done because it was done that way in the interest of now that is backfiring, because reconfirmation is not happening. Even if you need a mere majority to win, but if you don't have enough people reconfirmed, I mean, it's going to be laughable if you go to a next election with a reconfirmation that does not really reflect the true picture of Dominicans who are eligible to vote, or close enough to that. Because as Alvin said, if it is under 2,000 being reflected on the list now, that is embarrassing. So that is why I think the Honorable Prime Minister had to get in damage control. Let somebody take the fall, say this is not happening right, and try to see how it is fixed on the back end. The way it is fixed from the back end, I do not know, and I do not care to even suggest how it is fixed. All I want to say is that if you're a Dominican and you wish to make a difference in your country, you should be on the elector's list, on the elector's list. Because if you're not on the list, you are not going to be able and eligible to cast a vote, and another election could come and you'll find yourself locked out in the dark. So individuals and parties should do all they can to try to get people to be reconfirmed or registered. And this idea of requiring a passport that people cannot even afford to begin to have should be relaxed. So if the Prime Minister is true to his word, which I hope he is, he should make it more enabling for every and anybody to be able to be reconfirmed, if that's what he prefers. Do not stand in the way of the process. And I think even if the party in power try to scheme around this reconfirmation, re-registration, the majority of Dominicans do not want to elect that party in any case. I don't think it is a safety for them to
I'll mute your mic because there's a lot of paper shuffling coming in the background. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
So I don't think, Mr. G, it is even safe for the party who's controlling the system right now as we speak, after 20 plus years of the same party in office. Dominicans are not asleep. Dominicans are wide awake. It is just that Dominicans have not yet decided that it's time to get rid of the party in power. So the machination, the schemes, yeah, you can do as much as you would like, but when the people wake up and the people decide to, it could be 10 people that's on the list. Those 10 people might not necessarily go the way that you expect them to go. But there must be a message from the alternative that is conducive to that waking up. And so far, I have not seen it in any major way, in a unified way, in a strategic way, in a way that really whips Dominicans into action with the right kind of narrative, with the slogans that cause people to say, okay, yeah, it's time for us to fix this issue. So we have that little mess to work out. But I have a lot of faith in the Dominican people, and I think our people will move in time, and our people will move, Mr. G and Alvin, when they are moved. But we have to move them.
Well, yes, I have confidence in the people. I mean, in the region, for example, you've had governments that have been in office for quite a few years, just as long as this one. But then eventually they were removed and new people came and took their place. So it's inevitable that this government is not going to, nothing lasts forever. And so this government will move at some point in time. But you know, Alvin, as we talk about the length of time that the government has been in office, in terms of deliverables, I mean, we're familiar to some extent with, with the Leblanc regime, which was a Labour Party, the Real Labour Party, with the Patrick John regime, which was a Real Labour Party, or the Serifis regime. And in terms of this Real Labour Party, I mean, let's do a little comparison with what you have today in office. Is this really a Labour Party? Is this really truly the original Labour Party? And really and truly, what would you say about the deliverables from the Leblanc regime, from the John regime, and so on, and compared to this government there, this ELP regime that's been in office for 25 years in terms of deliverables, and you could maybe do a comparison in terms of deliverables between what Dominica has delivered over the past 25 years and what St. Kitts has delivered, what Antigua has delivered, what St. Vincent has delivered, and so on. So give me your thoughts on that, Albert.
Yeah, well, Mr. G, I mean, I worked in the public service for a number of years. And I sometimes, some of the folks who, for whatever reason it is, sometimes take objection to folks like myself and Alex because they consider us in the diaspora and we should not be saying or doing. I sometimes have to remind them that I worked throughout the public service for a number of years. And I started off in my very youthful years under the Patrick John government when I started off at the Audit Department in 1975. So I worked under the Patrick John administration. I worked under the Dame Eugenia Charles administration. I worked under the Edison James administration. And the last position, of course, as you know, you and I, Sheridan, we go way back during your NDC time, and I as the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. So we had a lot of, collaborations, if we put it this way. I mean, even when folks talk about the World Music Creole Festival, sometimes I just stand aside and I look and I laugh because I was in the Ministry of Tourism as the Assistant Secretary then, highly involved in cabinet papers, putting the papers together. When, the Ministry of Tourism started off with Jesus Timothy. And so I don't want to go into that. But I'm saying all of this to say that I have seen what obtained before and what obtained now. So I can make comparison. I wasn't on the outside. I was right in the inside. And by virtue of my position as General Secretary and several other things. So to answer in a very way, maybe I should put it differently. And maybe to ask a Dominican person, are you better off now than you were 5 years ago? Or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago? That's the question. I'd imagine Alex is a pollster. So that is what I would like to go around Dominica and just ask the average guy in Bwetika, in Petit Savan, in Portsmouth, in Grand Bay, St. Joseph. Hey, bro, are you better off now than you were 5 years ago? And get the response. Don't ask him any high-fluted question, to confuse his brain. Just ask him, are you better off now than you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago? And see what the response is. And I'm sure you know what the response is going to be like. And I mean, if we take any of the sectors, if you take farming as a sector, I just saw a video that a friend sent me with a farmer in Grenada. Very interesting. He was there cultivating on 20 acres of land in Grenada. And all of the produce that he produced on his farm goes directly to New York to Bailey or Bela, whatever the name is, some grocery place in New York. And even apples is growing in Grenada. He got a special type of apple that he's growing, and pineapples and passion fruit and breadfruit, you name it. Now, we know what the farmers are complaining. We've heard Hillary, a farmer, on the radio all the time. We've heard other farmers. So that's agriculture. Take health. I mean, at one point, we had one of the best health systems in the region. We know the late Carisse Etienne was one of the champions behind that. I mean, we were a model. Other islands in the region will come to Dominica and figure out and say, boy, how are you doing that? Tell us how to do it. I have a friend who was supposed to do surgery yesterday at the China Friendship Hospital. I hate repeating that word because that should have been the Dr. Bernard Sorendo's hospital or Dr. Wati hospital or whatever. But he was supposed to do surgery and on the drips and everything to do the surgery. Guess what? Had to be postponed because the x-ray or whatever wasn't working, and some part, they couldn't get the part, they couldn't fix it. And they can't give him a date to reschedule. They had the guy on the drips and everything, preparing for surgery. And the surgery could not be undertaken because of an x-ray equipment. That's health. Take education. We see what's happening in the education field. We see the delay that has taken place with the grammar school, a roof collapse, and up to now, Mr. G, have you had a report? Have you have any idea that indicate why that roof collapsed and who is responsible and what was the cost involved? Was that a $2 million loss or a $500,000 loss?
Well, we haven't seen that report. That report was promised quite some time ago.
And how are we going to mitigate to give, again, we're talking about the question of trust. How are we going to give the parents that trust so that they feel comfortable that, you know what, the integrity of that building is good so I can safely put my child in there? That's education. Take housing. With all this housing flair that is being done all over the place. Patrick John started housing. You know of the Simon Boulevard. You know of Baffert State, Eugenia, all this housing. But guess what? These were houses where people can take that certificate of title for their little property at Baffert State. When you drive up in Baffert State now, look at Baffert State, look at Louisville, look at Simon Boulevard, look at those places. All of those houses, homes that people were able to get and can use their title to send your child to school and to do other things. That's housing, So, I mean, I can go to several sectors. Tourism, which is, as I said, was an area that I worked in for a number of years in tourism. You know what we did with as far as tourism. I mean, the sites and the conditions of the sites and the integrity of those various sites. And I mean, it was amazing. Dominica, for the first time in 96, it was when we hosted the CTO conference in Dominica. Remember, we hosted that big conference. You were the chairman of that committee. I served on that committee as your deputy chairman. We hosted that for the first time. The CTO has never come back to Dominica for a conference. Okay? So, there are so many areas where I believe that one could And at the end of the day, you know, governments are in office or persons elect government into office to improve the lives of individuals, to improve your lot, your condition, so that at the end of the day, you can earn a decent living, a decent salary, whether you're in the private sector, the public sector, or you're a farmer, or you're an entrepreneur, a young business person, that you can live, that you can have a home, you have a shelter, you can send your children to school. Something happens to you and you have to fly across to Antigua. You can go in the credit union and withdraw $5,000 on your account and travel and do that. I recall the days, Mr. G, when I was General Secretary of the CSA. You know the amount of excursions we did? Every summer we did an excursion, you know, to UK, to Canada, to US. Tons of people, and these people would be able to go on a vacation, buy their ticket, have pocket change, go out, come back. I mean, is that still doable? You know? So I think, again, I would say the question is, are you better off now than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Tonight, the President of the United States of America is issuing a State of the Union address. And you know what is the number one thing that he has to try and find a way to turn it around? The cost of living in America. The cost of living in America. He has to find a way to convince the American people that you will be better off cost of living while come the midterm or before the midterm. So you have to be able to show the ordinary man or woman that their lives are better. And if you're not able to do that, then it means you have failed. There are no durables to talk about. I don't even want to talk about the Roseau situation and all of that. That is another discussion. Take the airport. You have an investment like the airport. What is it? A $1.5 billion investment, $2 billion? I don't know, because again, the lack of transparency and information, nobody knows how much is spent, how much intend to spend, because we don't have no clue as to what's going on. But let's say, for argument's sake, we're talking about a capital investment of $1.something billion. Do you know that construction is one of the areas that drives an economy? The question asked, how many of the villagers or the residents of Wesley or Woodfordale is seeing a spillover of that kind of investment? How many of them? I mean, even a simple thing, for example, like a young person in Wesley maybe cooking food.
Alex, could you mute your mic?
Oh, okay.
Even, for example, a young lady in Wesley cooking food for the workers, or selling juice, or bakes and codfish, or something. So you see a spillover. The workers at the end of when they get their pay, fortnight or whatever, you would see them in the village spending some of that money. Some circulation. Are you seeing that? Is that happening in Wesley? No, I want somebody in Wesley or Woodfordale to tell me. Is there a spillover in those two communities as a result of a massive capital project like an airport of over $1 billion thereabout? So clearly, folks have not seen their lives change, and as a result, Alex is a professor, so he's better at grading than me. I'm trying to figure out what grade I would give. It's going to be close to an F, very close to an F, in terms of the deliverables and whether Dominicans can say they're better off now. We see a small group, are doing very well, and we know who they are, and we just have to walk around and see what they have been able to acquire over the period.
Right. Alex, let's add your thoughts to this. Alvin drew to our attention to all these sectors, agriculture. That's supposed to be the big deal for Dominica. And incidentally, Alvin, when we were doing this work, in these years when UDLP was in office, the Mount Trapito National Park was designated a World Heritage Site. And that was
thing, right?
And we've seen what has happened in terms of some of the land in the north. Now, in terms of the sectors that Alvin mentioned, due to our attention, Alex, mentioned agriculture, he mentioned the economy, he mentioned tourism, manufacturing, processing, infrastructure, exports, healthcare, education, housing. Then, of course, he ended up talking about the airport. I mean, if you look at the totality of the deliverables of this Labour Party regime in office now over the last 25 years, in terms of what they've delivered on each of those sectors there, and I say you can even make a comparison between what Dominica has delivered over the last 25 years compared to what St. Kitts, St. Vincent, and Lucia, and all of these other islands have delivered. And then, as Alvin said, if you ask somebody, are you better off now than you were 10 years ago? So if you're not better off now than you were 10 years ago, and you have a regime in office for 25 years, what do you expect this regime can deliver in the future if they remain in office?
Yeah, well, again, Alvin was quite eloquent, and I'm here thinking, boy, we are so effectively diagnosing the problem, which we have done repeatedly. You do an amazing job on this program, Mr. G. Whenever I listen, and I listen as much as I can, the diagnosis is there, the ideas are there. And to me, I think Dominicans understand that better than us because they are feeling the pinch. I know a business person who 10 years ago was able to purchase $4,000 worth of top-up basic. And today, that individual cannot do $200 worth of top-up. She used to do $1,000, $2,000 per, one for DG, one for flow. Today, combined $200 because the returns are not there. People do not have the capacity to purchase the airtime to do their stuff. And I don't even have to look at all the data and statistics that Alvin and the points that Alvin made because those points are well made. Talk to the average ordinary business person. See how their life have changed over the past 10, 15, 20 years. It has not progressed. It has gone down. So it's a cry. It's a far cry from where we were to where we are. The biggest industry in Dominica as we speak is FET. And it is a fantastic industry. Nothing wrong with FET and CWO. As long as the spill of benefit individuals, which I think, I heard the carnival was huge and people would have benefited, nothing wrong. And that is not even a government / administration thing. It's people deciding that we are claiming our thing. The FETs are organized by the private sector people. Yes, the government had some incentives for the carnival, give them something, but the environment was not created by the current regime, it was created by past regime. The Creole Fest we speak so highly about, our traditions was created and plateaued by Edward Oliver LeBlanc. It is his work in 1967 which is now bearing fruits and will continue to bear fruits in the foreseeable future. In terms of a legacy of the current regime for the past 20 years, what are we benefiting from? Housing revolution? Well, the last I heard, revolution speaks to a total transformation of things, and sometimes revolution does not end very well. I think we need a housing solution. Putting apartment buildings in places and spaces in Dominica where you should have traditional self-contained family homes is a problem 15, 20 years down the line. Are we ghettoizing our areas, our district? Nothing wrong in the apartments if we can sustain them and maintain them. And if they are used for short term and they turn around. But what we should be trying to do is to develop self-contained family units, not one apartment or one house or one building with 20 apartments with children, girls, boys sharing the same common spaces. What are you setting up for? You never know. So I'm not saying that there is anything dramatically wrong with that, but I'm saying Dominica does not lend itself for that kind of project type living or livity. For short term, yes. For basic stuff, yes. But in terms of a vision for the future in terms of living and housing, that's not a solution. It's maybe a revolution. Maybe it's rightly named. But there should be a solution. And the solution would be to use those units for specific housing, sports, recreational, youth, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, and focus on having family units established for long term, 15, 20 years down the line, as other parties and governments in the past would have done. So my suggestion is, yes, we have diagnosed the problem. Dominicans know the problems better than us. Alvin, let us suggest ways in which we can move forward to give Dominicans hope to say, look, we can really do something differently. Because at that time, I think Dominicans are tired with the repetition of us saying what could have been or what didn't happen. For instance, the hospital. You said the name does not really resonate with what we are as a people. We have trained so many doctors. We can give it any name, but we should have certain wings, like Dr. Bernard Sorrendo has to be permanently featured on any Dominican hospital. Hendricks, Paul, Kevin Ferrara, Irvin I.P. Pascal, Dr. Hazel Shillingford Ricketts, the Mapampo gerontology wing for elderly Dominicans who are above 100 plus. You have to give those people special care at the hospital. Create a unit just for elderly Dominicans.
Let's not forget Dr. McIntyre.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
Dr. McIntyre, Dr. Warren Sanford, Dr. Damian Dublin. These people are experts in medicine, and we should augment the hospital. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in having relationships with China, but if you're going to really create an edifice for health in Dominica, I see a partnership with our health practitioners working better than the naming that we are giving the hospital now. So yes, we can maybe call it the Dominica Hospital, but we have to augment it with the heroes, the health heroes that we have. Those I have mentioned and those I have not mentioned. So we should see prominent names established in that edifice to show that these people were the ones who form the nucleus, they form the backbone of Dominica's healthcare. If we do that, I think there will be more, Dominicans will be more comfortable going to the Dominica-China Friendship Hospital, knowing that the spirit of those people who have served us so well is plastered all over this hospital. That could change the psyche and our thinking of the hospital. So what I'm saying, Brother Alvin, and my dear friend, Brother Mr. G, yes, we have diagnosed the problem, but Dominicans are coming, they are tuning in every Tuesday to hear what it is that we are offering. No, I'm not offering myself for politics. I've never done that. I've been involved in the politics, but I do not see myself being a political person involved in elections. But I think it's time that we give Dominicans hope by telling them, let's do things differently. Instead of calling attention to what we didn't do, what we missed, almost a quarter century is of mistakes and some progress. It's a lot to go back on every time. Let us give them a quarter century ahead. So let us say, at this time, 25 years, here's where we can be if you implement the things that we should implement. So I'm going to try and twist every question you ask me from now on, Mr. G, to something that is more forward thinking. Because the answer to Dominica's progress is not in the back. Yes, the back and the past have created the platform for us, but the answer, the youths, the children, the young people, the Buyo artists want to see what it is that we can do to continue promoting Buyo. Is Buyo a registered trademark name somewhere on Dominica's behalf? I don't think so. Has the government of Dominica, besides using Buyo for the Queen and other places, done anything strategically to take Buyo to Carnegie Hall, to take Buyo to Times Square in New York, to have a minister responsible for culture / indigenous music, which includes Buyo and Kalinago music? So this is what we can offer the people, something like that, to really once and for all establish Buyo as a genre and see Buyo receiving awards internationally, like soca is now receiving. Incidentally, soca is not a Trinidadian product per se. Soca was not created in Trinidad. Trinidad popularized soca, but soca was made by Shotty, by Tokyo, and a guy called Chris Serafin at Astor Hotel in Dominica about a conquest this guy had with a woman from Soufriere. Upiti Shorty. That's the first soca song. And Trinidad took it and run with it. So even when we give in Trinidad about our Buyo is not soca.
Alvin, you need to mute your mic.
We must also remind them, Mr. G, that soca originated in some way from Dominica too, so we cannot divorce ourselves from the soca. And all African music somehow connect with each other. So yes, bouillon is bouillon, bouillon is not soca, but soca is not necessarily Trinidad, because all the elements of the first soca was given to Lord Shorty by Lord Tokyo and Chris Serafin in Dominica, and they sat down at Asta Hotel to create that first song. That's why soca is what it is today. So this is what I would want to suggest we do. Offer Dominica hope, offer them something that we can do. Instead of looking back 25 years, Alvin, let us look forward 25 years and tell Dominicans, let's take the journey with us. I hope you guys will agree with me.
Well, certainly, I mean, and we could take each one of those sectors that we named here tonight and make suggestions on how to progress them in the future, because certainly there is a link between production. We used to be very big in production at one time in Dominica with Bello and Cook DCP and all kind of things, and all of that is gone. But I mean, as you talk about bouillon, I mean, why not try to make bouillon a world beat, a world music? You know, why not try to make Exile One's music a world music? You know, so why not try to make the Kalinago territories beat what a world beat, our local indigenous music? You know, so why not just convert this into world beats? I mean, if you were to organize that properly, which was what was intended with the World Queer Music Festival when we were doing it, was to take all this music and put it on the world stage and organize it, right? So that it is a product to the world. I mean, this is what would represent Dominica, but from a music standpoint. But I think so. There's an opportunity now to take bouillon and cadas and put them on the world stage, right?
Indeed.
Yes, I think that is what should happen.
Because quickly, Mr. G, one of the criticisms they have for bouillon is some of the suggestive lyrics, suggested lyrics, some of the explicit lyrics. The nasty business of bouillon is not bouillon is not necessarily what is said, is the music, the beat. And there are people who put things on top of the beat which really should be played at nights and in other places and spaces. But at the end of the day, entertainment is entertainment, and there are people with different palettes. And I'm not going to criticize nasty business here, because who am I to judge? So there are people who say, well, the bouillon is no nasty business. No, nasty business is an aspect, a little offshoot of the bouillon. The bouillon is what you hear, the rhythm. It is the commercialized rhythm of our people that WCK, Cornell and them so aptly captured. Now, I heard Cornell in an interview saying that when they created bouillon, they were playing on the rhythms. They were not influenced by calypso and soca. Now, I smiled, because although Cornell might have been too young to really take in soca and use it in his music, soca was really already in the music, because in the 1980s, when bouillon was created, those Jimping guys were playing calypso and soca. So whatever he created as bouillon had soca and calypso in it inadvertently. So he didn't use it, but he transposed it unknowingly that he actually used the mix, because bouillon did not evolve on its own. It evolved through the traditional rhythms, but those rhythms in the 1980s, as you know, Mr. G and Alvin, they were already playing sa yeah, sa yeah. They were playing those music too. So when Cornell and Keith and them transposed what they were hearing, they actually fused the soca, the cadas, the calypso, and all of that with the Jimping as well. So bouillon actually came from that very rich lineage of Dominican music. Credits to Ra and others who have been part of its reformation. And that just has continued. Today, the younger guys are singing some of the lyrics on top of it that, make some people shudder. But, that's the world that we live in right now. We don't live in the world of Sparrow and Tokyo with Tenny Shutong and Jose La Plapunu Wesa, Jose Punu Fesa. Those are the days when you crafted lyrics differently. But no, it's a different kind of thing. But the point has been very well made, Mr. G. We need to do more to platform the music. Let us safeguard the bouillon, continue the beat, claim it, export it, make money from it, have people sample it, get returns from what we're doing now. Because I think at this level that we are, thanks to what governments before had done, and I heard Alvin talk about the You were actually the chair, I think, behind the organization of the World Creole Music Festival. I was not an original founder, but I was there originally too in 1997, if I can remember rightly. When this thing was created, I think you, Mr. G, was the guy behind it. You and the former minister, he's now deceased, Julius Timothy, had a major role to play in that. So you can maybe enlighten us on that. I think that is where all the idea of packaging Dominica's music and culture from what Libla would have done in the 60s. You guys came in the 90s, 30 years after, and said, let's take it to a next level. And right now we are reaping the benefits from it 25 years after. So people may take credit for it, but people like us don't forget. We cannot forget because we were there. If nobody can tell us otherwise, we were there. Lambi can tell you again, an underrated Dominican who should be credited for a national award, because it was not just Fred White after Hurricane David. Lambi had a major role to play as well. So, Mr. G, you should recommend Lambi for a national award.
Oh, I will recommend Lambi anytime. But Lambi, you look like you want to take a call.
Yes, there was a call online. Call, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, Dominica. Good evening, St. Joseph. Lambi, look, I don't expect much from Roosevelt Skerrit and his associates. They are wicked and they are intentional. They can do much more for young people in Dominica. But instead, what they intend to do is play tricks. We just come out on a carnival. They say it was robust. Oh, a lot of people, a lot of hotel was booked and packed. Money in the place. Before we even tally and know how well and how successful we was, even though we come up with $10 million for the carnival season, it does take 2 weeks. Garrett and his people come up with another show, another stuff to export that money out of Dominica. So in other words, they're going to spend $2 to $3 million for the Christian show, the music Christian show they have on Saturday. But yet still, they don't know how much money they make during the carnival. This man easy to export Dominica money, but not easy to bring in money in Dominica. These musicians trying their best for Dominica to make money. But Roosevelt Skerrit always finding some big people out there to give that few dollars within one night. How can you have a government that's so bank of exporting so much money out of Dominica instead of leaving it for the local musicians to become bigger and bigger and make Dominica grow bigger and bigger? These guys are corrupt and they need to get out of office. I think the best days for Dominica is now and in the future. But until we don't take on that government in power, they're trying to spend money on all useless against the police, against people, against them. They spend millions of dollars, in court. When you ask Blackmore how much money you spend in court, he cannot say because of security reasons. Roosevelt Skerrit sell over 51,000 passports in U.S. currency. Dominicans begging to know how much are derived from that passport and where can we go from here. No, you could go for everybody. He is not staying because Roosevelt Skerrit continue and the people around him to abuse the Dominican people. That's why poverty will continue reigning in that country. We need to put our heads together to get rid of that government. God bless Dominica. Thank you.
And God bless you as well. And thanks a lot. Alvin, let me go over to you because I know that you had a lot you want to contribute to what Alex and I were discussing a moment ago. But as you set your mind to that, I mean, among all the other things, I wanted you to sort of look again a little bit more closely in terms of the question: does the key to Dominica's future lie in its human resources abroad? It's something that we have not really been given enough thought to. Because I think it was you who mentioned somebody in Grenada who was producing stuff and growing apples and all kind of things. And then there's a shop in New York that is buying all the stuff. I mean, that is just a clear example of how Dominicans in the diaspora could assist with what we're doing in Dominica. So let's have a go at it.
No, you're absolutely right, Mr. G. And let me just say quickly in response to the comments that my friend Alex made as to the way forward and what do we do. I agree with him. And that is why I believe a lot is going to rest on us. When I say us, I mean those of us Dominicans in the diaspora to assist with that development process or that change, whatever it is that to move Dominica forward. I mean, the Israel people from Israel,
Are you talking about Tennessee, Palestine?
Palestine, well, not Palestine, but Israel. I'm talking about the diaspora, the way they structure it. I mean, you have what is that big event that takes place in America every February by the what's that group of folks? They wear green and so what's it? I just can't.
The Irish.
Yes, the Irish. You know, we see through the Jews. So I think we have a much greater role to play as folks in the diaspora. But let me just add two other areas which I think is critical as we talk about all of that and the question that you just asked. We started up this program looking at low voter turnout and why folks are not, engaged as they should. And one particular group of people that we can't not pay attention to is our young people. Youth participation.
Alex, mute your mic, please.
Okay.
Youth participation shapes a country future. And that is participation across the board. Now, I know Alex is much more involved in the cultural aspect of Dominica, even then and now. And what do we see happening in culture? I mean, as a people, your culture and how you respond and treat your culture will determine who you are as a people moving forward. If you don't understand that, and we spoke earlier about, the doctors that we mentioned, who are you? Who am I as a Dominican? What shapes me? And that is where our culture and our identity comes in. And we see what's happening in culture. I mean, two classic examples. We see what's happening with youths in sports. I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet, but Alex know. I mean, we do not have, why would it take a government 25 years to reconstruct, remodel, or build a performing arts center in Dominica? 25 years to refurbish the House of Culture? I mean, you had a play taking place last year, a replay from the late Alwyn Bully. And you know where they had to go to perform the play? In St. Gerard's Hall. They had to try and configure it to have the play, and they wanted to have more plays, but they couldn't. And it takes you 25 years with all the relationship you have with all the peoples around the globe, with China, Arab, and what have you, to give the young people a state-of-the-art performing center in Roseau, on the outskirts of Roseau, wherever that young people can go and produce plays and have shows and listen to a good orchestra, a good symphony, whatever. What is happening to our library? 25 years to construct or to model or to renovate a library. Alex and I and you, Mr. G, you know how much we use that library there on that. That is where ideas come through, in a library. That's where ideas exchange. Alex is a professor at the university and he knows the value of a library. I'm sure where he is in his area, there must be at least 5-6 libraries within these parameters.
Yep.
And we don't have a library. And all of that is what improved the lives of young people. So if young people do not have avenue for sport to demonstrate their arts, their artistic talents, culture, they don't have a place where they can stimulate their minds in a library. I mean, what do you expect to be the outcome of the country? And in terms of the ideas, as he said, the ideas, who is going to implement those ideas? You know, these guys have reached a plateau. You know, I've been in America for, you know, a little while now, and I've been in corporate America. And let me tell you something. There comes a time when a company doesn't operate anymore, and what you do, you get rid of the CEO and even the whole board, you change it. Because the company is not being successful, they're not bringing returns, their products sucks, the quality is questionable, customers are complaining. So they've reached your plateau. And I think this administration have reached its plateau. So even if you might give them a brilliant idea and tell them just what we said here tonight, you need a state-of-the-art place. They'll hear it, they will say, yeah, and it might take them another 5 years to do it. And not only, they will not do it in a way that to say, well, okay, we're going to build a state-of-the-art performing arts center. Let me have Alex, Sheridan, you know, a couple of people who've been in that area, put them together as a committee to look at it, you know. If Alex is not red, he's not going to be on that committee. We know it. Let's not mince word about it. Alvin is not red. Alvin is not going to be on that committee. So they'll have their people on that committee to give ideas. I mean, look at Roseau. You know, we still have a lot of this architecture, this buildings in Roseau. That Roseau could be a walking city for our tourists, where you take them on a walk and show them each building, the lanes, what it means. You know. So, Mr. G, I mean, there's so much I can say tonight, but I believe I'm still a man of hope, put it this way. I'm still hopeful. And like Alex said earlier, I agree with him. Dominicans at some point will realize where they are. And when I say Dominicans, I'm not just referring to those back home. Of course, those back home are closer to the fire, closer to the kitchen, so they feel the heat. But I think it's our responsibility on us as well. And I think you asked the question, take the remittances. In 2024, from the World Bank report that I pulled up, we did $38.63 million by way of remittances to Dominica. Let's suppose we had just put aside 10% of that in a development fund to help small businesses. That would be about 3.8 million US dollars, which is about 7 million EC dollars. That's just 10%. 10%. Okay? Now, we are currently facing a problem with the CBI. In the CBI program, you had Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, Dominica, and who was the other one? Antigua. Okay? All of these islands that I just mentioned are vulnerable to hurricanes. We talk about climate resilience and blah, blah, blah. On average, each of these countries must have dragged in well over $2-3 billion from the CBI program. Okay? At least, I would say. Each of the countries come individually. So combine, I intend to do some research on that at some point. Combine over the last 10, 15 years, I would think that these countries must have generated close to $25 to $30 billion in CBI revenue. Maybe less. But let's agree on a $20 billion over the last 10, 15 years. Okay? They are all part of the OECS, and we have a standard currency being our EC dollars. So our currency does not fluctuate like Jamaica or Guyana or any one of those islands. We have a steady currency that is pegged to the US. We have a Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. If these guys were any serious about development, couldn't they have come together and say, you know what, guys, we are doing this thing, revenue is coming in, we're making some money. Let us agree and commit to put 10% of CBI revenue into a development fund for the region. So when a hurricane strikes, for example, we don't have to go begging and crying to some international agency and build up that fund over a period. Because we got a central bank. We got all the bright guys around, the economists. So let's put aside a 5 or 10% from the revenue, and it goes in a pool. And that way, we could use that fund whenever you have hurricanes, for development, for disaster, whatever it is. You know how much money we would have in that fund? You know how much money we would have in that fund that could go towards this type of infrastructural development projects or to help small businesses? But guess what? They squander the money. So it's like you're running a company and you don't recognize your reserves and put anything aside for rainy day. And now you have persons like our prime minister saying, well, if the CBI go, these fellas are talking against the CBI, we have no revenue. And here you had a situation where almost 60% of your recurrent revenue was based on CBI. But had you put some money aside, you could now go in that development fund being managed by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, of which we are part of, and you have some money to borrow down from.
Well,
So
yes.
I think these guys have reached their plateau, but I still believe, though, that those of us in the diaspora have a major role to play. The question of professionals, how professionals are treated across the board. No respect, lack of respect. They don't recognize them. You have diminished a middle.
Yeah, Alvin, I wanted us to really go into it because, Alex raised the question that we should really make the suggestions, about what should be done going forward.
But who's going to implement the suggestion, Mr.
No, hold on. We already agreed that this regime cannot stay in power forever. So let us assume that this regime will be out of office, and there'll be a regime which will be more conducive to working with the diaspora and working with real experts and working with friendly governments and agencies. But I mean, let's face it, as you mentioned, Alvin, Dominica alone, the figures that have been bandied about in terms of proceeds from the CBI was over 10 billion. These are some of the figures that were bandied about. And now, if, for example, let us say 25% of that was set aside in the treasury in Dominica for the purpose of providing support for manufacturing, for tourism, for infrastructure, for exports, for healthcare, for education, and all of that, look at where we would have been. But instead, this money was used to build hotels. I mean, and the occupancy rates for some of these hotels are very, very low. And really, they're not really making that much difference to the local economy at the moment. So it's clear to me that if those proceeds were utilized much more wisely, Dominica's economy could have been so much more different at this time.
Absolutely.
So I think Lambie is making a sign.
Alex, just one, let's take a call from Lambie.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your call.
Good night, Lambert.
Good night.
Yeah, and good night to the panelists, Alex, Alvin, Mr. G, and I think who else on board?
Good night. How are you?
Yes. Good, Mr. G. Mr. G, I want to say one thing before I start my conversation. Mr. G, we have lost a great man up in America, which is Jackson. He passed away, I think, at the age of 90.
Jesse.
He was one of these black movements on the south side in Harlem. Just as Alvin saying that he was one of these guys with Sidney Poitier, Muhammad Ali, and many others. Alex is a man of history. He can touch a little bit on it. He had passed away, I think, at 90. Jesse Jackson, I think. So I just give a little brief on it. But I really want to continue with what Alvin's saying. I'm a small business person. And everything Alvin is saying there, if you see these things was in place, I don't think we be supposed to so depend on the government. The government is supposed to be coming to us. We're supposed to have the politicians coming to us. For instance, look at the heritage site in Pocasset. If you remember in the early 80s, I think under the Freedom Party side, that was a very big enterprise on the road side, good location for business, for the south, for the north, for the people from Bells, from the east. They would bring the vanilla, the things to sell, the cassava. You know, the vendors, it was a big list and it was in the right location. If you look at, there is a heritage site somewhere in Japan, a mountain, I just can't remember the name. This thing dragged thousands of people. They have to restrain people there for the day, you know, in Japan. If you look at the Great Walls of China, which is under the UNESCO preservation, these things drag millions of people for the year. And we don't understand those products we have, as Alex was saying. Look at the legacy Mr. Libla put on. That's what that bringing thousands of people. Look at Mr. G legacy and Mr. This former minister, the Timothy legacy. The ideas of these men, just these two men doing that. And look at the products. Look at it. I mean, this is not politics, you know. And one of the things I would love Mr. G to do is on a Sunday afternoon, have a program like that early enough. Because most of those programs are going back to back, because you see the Labour Party have a program tonight where the young people can be at work and listen, and the elderly and the middle class. I'm a vendor, and I see one vendor go to a store and buy some products for his little vending shop in Mongoose, event for the tourists. The man buy 2 cases of beer, 2 cases of water, and a couple of other little things, $700, and the government is getting a percentage from that, for importing goods. But Alvin said something a while ago, and I really want that man to continue on that legacy. We have to put our resources and our ideas together. Unless we do that, the government don't understand that. Marva Williams, the director of Discover Dominica, telling them that. Mr. Sam Raphael telling them that. Mr. Kenny Green telling them that. And Mr. G, you need to get a man like Sobers to host a program to get these people. This is a movement, you know, Mr. G. This we can sit down with the government, as always saying. They're not going to change, because even in Roseau, I tell them, look at Roseau. Mr. Nassif, they're breaking down none of them whole buildings, because he put them under UNESCO. He renovating them, he chipping off the plaster, and he digging them out to show the stone surface. Just as Alvin said, we have the Lenten season falling after Ash Wednesday. The church is part of the culture, as Alvin was saying. In the middle of the street in Roseau, they're all in front of courts. That's supposed to be a big celebration of the Catholic Church. You have people like Mr. Joseph. I think they have a festival, they call it Favors of the World. That's supposed to be falling, because you have all the visitors there. And you don't care how you try to bring that to these guys. They're just not taking that on. I'm a vendor in the city of Roseau. We don't have a place to sell. You have $45 million there. You've seen everybody buying a property in Roseau. And the government has seen the vision to buy a property so that we can put up a supermarket for the local product. Look at that big building right across the credit union. If the government was serious, they would rent 2 floors of that for just Dominica product. This is us. We have to pay everything you buy from the local to do manufacturing. The government getting a percentage for entering the island, the bottles, the peppermint, we can process. I even tell Mr. Jolly that one of them days we can start to think of processing our own pasoli oil and our own peppermint. That is Honest Jolly. He's a businessman. You have to think as well. Alvin thinking there. We cannot just import in. We will send back all our money. Why I'm talking like that is because I invest here, you know. I was built a site in Debus called Cecil Waterfall. I work on the Eco Village with these white people from Sweden. You see in the production today, these people pulling out almost 600 people on the ship for the day. They have a red train running around Roseau. Martin Edwards' son was part of that project in number 6 in Marigot. We build that on a crusher yard, you know. Grass couldn't grow there, you know, and we make flowers grow there. This is not talk I want to talk. Government never give me $1 to fix up the bush. You know. When I realized they wasn't paying attention, I just had to give it up. Lambert Charles know that was a route he passed every day with tourists. I mean, I don't know what to say again, you know, to make this system. I tell you, the director of Discover Dominica telling them, look at the volume of people. If our people train and ready, if you talk about the custom officer, if they give the people a welcome smile, the taxi men, the local, we train them. The whole road supposed to be just boutiques, shops, just boutiques and shops. You leave Fokole going down, supposed to be just local boutique and shops so that the people from Fokole can benefit, the people from Mahu can benefit. In the 80s, when the farmers pass into Mahu, they're spending, each of them spending at least $300 there.
Right. Lambi, I think
have a good night, brother.
Okay, yeah. So thanks a lot for that contribution. Really good contribution. Um, Alex, you were starting to make a contribution here.
Yeah, so whatever Alvin give me, I take it to the future. Alvin speaking about what they did not do, Alvin, what we have to do. And you should be part of the conversation moving forward. Mr. G, Lambie, et al. What we should do is to create a sort of redesign program that focuses not on foreign expats, but Dominicans who are willing to come back and Dominicans who are willing to invest. So my brother who just called, who is an investor, should be given the same amenities with our state asset to be able to raise money to invest as a local. So we can have a program like America and every other country has that benefit the country based on citizenship or whatever we recreate it to be. But the emphasis should be on Dominicans with money, because the Jollies have money. If they have assets that they can use to get more money, they would build a big what do you call it, not lab, the pharmacy, or maybe on one in Maho. So the citizenship program should be for Dominicans mainly. Yes, you can talk about foreigners as well, but it should be geared at bringing people back to Dominica to invest and to live in our country, Dominicans with interest in Dominica. And the money that Alvin speak about will go, because Dominicans are now who are reinvesting to re-establish themselves in Dominica will be told, look, but 10% of what you're making goes to this for the development of the country moving forward. Right now, we have lost control as a country of the program. I believe so. No one has to convince me that Dominica controls the citizenship program. I think that's in the hands of people who control it, and we get a little something from it. But we have to own that program again. So the new group of people who will take over the government will own the program, purge the program from the corruption or the nefarious activity, and have the program run in a different way to focus on the development of agriculture. And I'm consulting with people and I'm giving them some advice. I'm being very careful how I speak. But that is what we have to do. Tell this investor that he will be controlling a passport or two to make money to reinvest in Dominica. The theater Alvin spoke about. I did my last play in Dominica almost 10 years ago, and I said publicly that I will never do another play in Dominica until there is a facility suitable enough to host a theater, international class work. And you can check the archives, just Google Alex Bruno, Theater Dominica, not work, whatever it is, you're going to find and make that statement. And I've never done a play in Dominica since, and I will not, until such time that we have the facility, a decent enough facility to do a good production. And Dominica has not seen a good national production in a while, over a decade. Yes, there's talent, but where's the space to do the production? So I took that decision as a playwright on my own not to do it, and I will not, until the new government creates the space. The space can be created right next to Fort Young. We have the library there. Fort Young is naturally going to be a partner to this new library space. We will reorganize the DBS broadcasting space, extend a little bit towards the wall, so we have a wonderful real estate where people can be in the library and enjoying the scenery that people at Fort Young enjoying too. And right there in the middle between the library and DBS, we can augment that building, that 100-year-old building, to create a space for the arts. We can have another one, a multi-purpose arts place, or we can have a space for the performing arts that holds 400, 500 people in that space and have a production every night. And there will be a walkover from the president's house into that new space for young people. We'll make the president's house a house for the people, not for the president, but for everybody in Dominica. It's a house of culture where people could go and visit and enjoy the yard, no security keeping them out. Yes, not in the space itself, but they could use the yard as recreation, and people could walk over that space to come to the library. So there'll be a big arch, wonderful golden arch. That is the vision you give to people, and they can take that if they want. because we have more ideas that we can do to develop. So right there and then, people living in Roseau and coming into Roseau will drive beneath an arch that talks about the International Center of Performing Arts and whatever it is. So we combine two spaces, we connect it to the Fortune Hotel real estate, which gives value to the center. We fix up people's back, and we just have a wonderful space in that space there. So we do for our library, we do for our art, we create a space. For music, we fix DBS as well in the process as well. Give them a studio where we put Q somewhere, into the extension. Whatever we do. But we create a situation where we reorganize the artistic space in Dominica. So instead of a DBS, a national broadcasting unit, where all media concerns have equal share and equal stake in that space. So that entire area going all the way down, coming all the way down to Fortune, across the street would be a sort of artistic cultural hub that feeds into everything that we do. I think that's what I want us to do. Tell Dominicans what we can do. I do not know whether any politicians are listening right now, but I'm itching to talk to people who are willing to change the discourse. Enough of what they did not do. Let's talk about what we can do. And if we can sell that to Dominicans, Alvin and Mr. G and Lambie, we are easily going to win and replace this government that is tired and stale. Let's not focus on what they did not do. Let's focus on what we can do. And Mr. G has the right questions that provoke us to see what we can do. And I don't think the government can take it, whatever we say now, because they don't have there's one thing to have a plan, then you need strategy to develop the plan, then you need logistics to make sure that works, and you need implementation. So even if they take the idea, they may not be able to implement it. It would have to take creative people like Mr. G, like Alvin, like us, to redesign the Dominica that we need for the future. And if we can sell that to Dominicans, guys, I think Dominicans will support a different kind of team of people to take Dominica to the ultimate or the real next level. That's just my view on that. And I just throw out some ideas randomly, but there's so much more that we can put together in a manifesto with a group of people united, forgetting our party and color, but deciding that Dominica is worth it to come together for and say, here is an alternative. Here is what we're going to do. And Alvin is very much on the money when you talk about putting some money away from that program that we have lost. That program is not in Dominican's hands anymore. We'll take it back and use it to develop agriculture, tourism, artificial intelligence, because that's something that we cannot get away from, and all the other sectors that are important to the indigenous life of Dominicans. Our money of our passport should be spent doing this, and it's okay. But the way our passport money is being spent now, I don't think Dominicans like it too very much. But if we reorganize it, Dominicans will understand that, hey, let's take a fight. And even the Americans and the Canadians and the British who are scoping us, they will say, you know what, they have reorganized, they have played a different game now, so that's cool. But the way we're doing the passport now, I think we are looking at problems down the line. Much more problems than we are having right now.
Thank you, Alex. And I think we're going to try to sort of close down in a moment, because I mean, a number of people probably want to watch the State of the Union address that Donald Trump is going to be making tonight. So I want to ask you to make your closing remark at this.
Are you sure of that, Mr. G?
I'm not sure of that, but I'm assuming that some people want to listen. And so, Alvin, your closing remarks?
Well, Mr. G, let me again thank you for inviting me to that conversation this evening. As I said, I always, welcome the opportunity to share my thoughts in terms of where I would like to see Dominica moving, and to share that platform with my friend Alex, and to thank the many folks who are tuning in and the callers who called. I think they had some really good observations and comments, especially our last caller. So I want to say thank you for that. I agree with Alex quite, fully. I agree. Like I said, it's going to require a lot from us, Dominicans in the diaspora, whether people want to agree with it or not. We have a wealth of knowledge and resources in the diaspora among Dominicans. And when I say resources, I'm talking both human and financial resources. Bear in mind that if one Dominican decides to send home on an annual basis $5,000 US, that's close to 15,000 EC dollars. Do the math at the exchange rate. So there's a lot that will be required of us moving forward. I'm committed to playing my little part, as small as that might be. There was one other document that I really want to leave in closing, and that again is from the esteemed former president of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Dr. Liverpool. And he spoke to, and that is something we might want to address at some other discussion, but he addressed the the first meeting of the 7th Parliament in the 27th of July, 2005. And the topic was civil rights and civic duties and responsibilities. And I think that is an area that needs to be looked at, especially as we speak of our young people, our school curriculum. When I grew up as a young man in school, we did civics at school. I'm sure Alex must have done some of that, and yourself, Mr. G.
Oh, yes.
That is no longer there. I don't know to what extent it's incorporated in what they call social studies. But what's your civil rights and civic duties and responsibility as a citizen? And captured in that presentation to Parliament then, he spoke of patriotism, that word patriotism. And he made some very, very important comments there. And he recognized us knowing our history and honoring the sacrifices of our ancestors. And he talks about the question of when you speak of patriotism connotes love and loyalty to one's own country, and the country that we generally love is the country of our birth. So I think that again too is a document that is worth revisiting and maybe having, and that's the other thing. I remember as an SMA student, we had so much debates. As I said in the library, we had so much conversations on so many topics. That's another thing that we have to find a way to bring back into the schools, whether we want to start at the primary school level or the secondary school level. But yes, we have work cut off ahead of us, and those of us who are still able to contribute must not shy away from that. I see a lot more persons saying things as it affects the country. More recently was a prominent businessman who spoke on the registration issue. So I want to encourage more of that. And just to end by saying thank you for inviting me, and Lambi and Alex, and look forward to having similar conversations again as we move forward in the future and try to push our country further. Bear in mind, though, that we are just shy of 2 years from our 50th year as a nation. Right. And how do we enter the next 50 years is going to be extremely important.
Well, thank you, Alvin. That is what Alex was talking about all night. I mean, how do we want to look like, 50th anniversary of independence? Alex, your closing remarks?
Indeed. So we should brand ourselves moving forward in the next 2 years. Here's what's going to be the case, but that's for another conversation.
True.
Thank you, Mr. G, for having me on. I really missed this environment. I love the way in which you engage. You allow us time to make our case. I am somewhat of a regular, but I would like to be more regular. If you have space for me. Okay.
We'll be taking on the advisement.
Yeah. So I certainly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for lending me the opportunity to speak with your audience directly. I'm hoping that something that we said tonight made some sense to at least one person. And if one person is moved by at least one thing that was said, I think that's our job done here. But I would think that more than one person feels a bit energized. And I'm looking forward to having those conversations and to continue finding ways to develop our beautiful island. Thank you again, Mr. G, for the Herculean task that you have done for us in the past, that you are now doing, and that God's blessings will continue to flow on you so that you can do more in the future to come, because you're still relatively young, and we expect by God's grace, you'll have a few more scores with us. to
Yeah.
continue contributing. Thank you so much, Mr. G. And Alvin.
Thank you for your sympathy, Alex. I appreciate that. Now, just thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Dr. Andre and Simeon could not be with us tonight.
Yeah.
So we thank them as well. And we want to thank all the folks who are on Facebook and YouTube that stayed with us throughout the night. Thank you so much for staying with us. And thank you to callers for the questions. Thank you, Lambi and Sherwin, for keeping us on the air. And it just left for me to say good night, gentlemen. I hope that some of you will probably take the opportunity to listen to the State of the Union address so that, because you know, Mario, what is his name? Marco Rubio will be tomorrow in that CARICOM meeting.
Yes.
So who knows what is going to come out of that?
I would like to be a fly on the wall.
Who knows what is going to come out of that exchange and where our government.
To be a fly on the wall, boy.
Yes, it'd be interesting to see where our government stand for whatever pressure that he puts on them in the region. So thank you and good night, everybody. Take care.
Cheers.
See you again soon.
All right. Good night, Mr. G. All right, Alex.
Okay, Alvin. Mr. G. Lambi.
The Global View on Q, the big station. Insights into where the people of Dominica and the Caribbean came from. Understanding our past. Embracing our present. Charting the way forward into our future. Together, eliminating poverty. Embracing justice, peace, and togetherness. The Global View on Q. Networking Dominica with a